Hey everybody, I'm Garima Shah with Genie, and I'm so excited that you guys have joined this segment, Gab with Garima. We're going to be doing it every Thursday at 12:30 to be sharing all kinds of information, and I hope that you guys are talkative and send comments and say what you'd like to talk about, what you'd like to hear. We're going to have some guest speakers and just so many other things that I plan to do with this, and I'm just so thankful for all of you to get on, watch, pay attention, be interactive. And the goal of this is definitely to help wherever we can, and share maybe some experiences and some total failures that I've had or that we've had as a company along the way. And maybe it'll help some of you. And I'd also love to hear from all of you as to what works and what doesn't. So today we are talking about mobilizing behind major initiatives. So what does that even mean? Like as a company or even as a person, sometimes you have all kinds of things going on, and some are way more important than others. And how do you really mobilize around them? How do you get the entire company or an entire group working towards the same end goal? And so, mobilizing toward major initiatives, this is really important to me because we just had an issue with it here at Genie. So, I'll explain what happened. Um, we started using this system that's amazing, called the EOS system, and our entire leadership team is trained on it. And we started having these amazing level 10 meetings on a weekly basis where we'd get together for 90 minutes and talk through lots of strategy and what the issues were in the organization and what we think we need to do to solve them. And these 90-minute meetings really replaced sometimes 10, 15, or 20 other meetings that we were having during the week as one-off groups or one-on-one, and where the information wasn't getting passed along. So we started having these 90-minute meetings, which were awesome. But then about 2 or 3 months into this process, we realized that we were using these meetings as a one-stop shop, and we weren't connecting on things that were major initiatives that were going on in the company that really needed that tactical thought, not that high level strategic macro, how do we solve this problem, but that, okay, how do we get into this? How do we solve this? What do we need to do? And what are those to do items and when are they due? So it seems kind of silly, but the idea of project planning is something that I've done my entire life. And I can't believe that I completely forgot to initiate a project plan. And when do you need a project plan? Like, when is it so important that as a company, you need to put together a project plan? And we're going to talk about what it is and how to initiate a project plan and all of those things. But when do you need one? So I think that there's two real reasons why you would need a project plan. The first is anything that is cross-functional, right? So anything that requires cross-functional teams. So think like we're maybe starting a new software integration. So maybe your entire company is moving from Apple to Microsoft. That is a pretty big initiative as a company. So it's really important to have a reason why everybody works together around that. How do we actually make that happen? If we're moving from Microsoft or from Apple, how do we do that? So maybe you're using a new technology. In our case, we started implementing things like app queues, and that's an amazing technology to help people with our system. And it's like a tutorial. It's fantastic. But how do we make sure that the entire company is aware and is working with it and make sure that we've mobilized around that? So anything that's cross-functional. So if you look at an initiative and you say, okay, I need marketing, I need finance, I need development, I need sales. If it's any more than two groups, you need to have a project plan. Anytime that something's more than two groups and cross-functional teams, you definitely need to have a project plan. The second reason to have a project plan, in my opinion, is something that is a huge company changing or company creating initiative. So you have a huge partnership coming on board, or you're in a make or break session with product or process. Like, if we don't get this done, we won't have a company, or if we don't get this done, we will not meet our Q2 or Q3 objective or for the end of the year. By the way, thanks, Mohit. Thanks. Great to see you as well. Thanks for joining. But that's another reason why you may need a project plan, something that is huge. Think about these things, right? So in our case, we have a couple major partnerships that we've been working on all year, and they're going to launch October 16th and November 1st. And that's a really big deal. And we need every single department in our company, from marketing, sales, operations, support, dev, to all be rowing in the same direction to make sure that we actually do those things. So that's why you would need a project plan. What are the two reasons? So just to go over that again, when do you need a project plan? Anytime you have more than two divisions or functions in a company working towards the same goal, you need a project plan. And anytime it's something that's company changing initiative, that's also when you would require a project plan. Does anybody have any questions, comments, anything like that before we keep going? No? All right, I'm gonna keep talking, but I hope you guys know that I really do want you to comment, call me out, tell me if I have something in my nose, whatever, so that these are really interactive. But so how do you start a project plan? Like what do you need to do? How do you start it? You start with the objective. So I'm sure you guys have always heard that you need to start with your end goal in mind. And that's no different in a project plan. Like they always say, like if you reach for the moon and then if you fail, you'll at least end up among the stars. And that's really important to have that end goal in mind, or that objective in mind. So how do you start it? You start by saying, okay, what am I trying to do and by what date? So let's say I'm saying I want to have, for example, these partnerships. I need to have them launched by October 16th and by November 1st. And I need to have those clients be very successful in the way that they onboard onto the Biller Genie platform. So I have a date and I have a very clear objective as to what I'm doing. So those are the two things you need. First, you need an objective for the project plan. And second of all, you need a target completion date for that project. Once you have that, then you start thinking about the stakeholders. So what departments is this going to touch? And you really need to think, as some person who's going to run the project, you need to think about it and say, do I need sales? Do I need marketing? Do I need finance? Do I need legal? Do I need compliance? Do I need regulatory? Do I need development? Do I need QA? Do I need support? So kind of look at every department in the organization and feel out which departments and which stakeholders in those departments will be contributors to this project plan. And it could mean that either they're contributing to the overall idea and how it needs to function, or it could simply be that there's someone who needs to take a task from that project plan, that they'll be assigned a task from the project plan. So how do you do it? You start with the objective, and you start with the timeline, and you also get all of the stakeholders that you know are important for this project plan, and you set a recurring meeting. So before you've done anything, you said, okay, I need to have a recurring meeting, and I know it seems like a lot, but it's usually good to start project planning meetings to be on a weekly basis in terms of your cadence. You can always change that. And these meetings can even be 2, 3, sometimes they're only 4 minutes long, at least in our teams, because people know what they're doing and it's just a check-in. But it's a really good way to set that cadence and set that intention for people to then start thinking, oh my gosh, I need to remember about this project, and something that comes up on their calendar. So if they haven't completed the tasks, they're going to make sure that they're remembering it, especially because they've got all the stakeholders on that call. And it's really important for them to watch that and make sure, like, oh God, okay, someone's going to be catching me on it. I'm accountable to this. I'm accountable to the rest of my team members. So I need to make sure that I complete this. And Aditya, thank you for your comment. I appreciate it. So now that we know kind of how, let's talk about what. All right. So what is a project plan? What do you do during this first meeting? You get all these people together. You're like, okay, well, first of all, who is the project manager? And I don't mean actually who. You may not have a PMP in our company. For example, at Biller Genie, we don't have anybody who's a certified project management. Like, we don't have anybody who's a PMP. But I'm super organized and I'm involved in a lot of initiatives. So even though I'm acting as the president of the company, in a lot of cases, I act as the project manager, and that's okay. The project manager should be the one who can run the meetings efficiently, who is very organized, who can keep people on tasks, and also the person who really understands the ins and outs of the initiative. So it may not be you, or it may be you, and maybe you have nothing to do with project management. Maybe you're like, wow, this is not me. I shouldn't be running this project. I've never run a project in my life. It doesn't matter. If you're the person who has the most knowledge and knows the ins and outs of the project and knows what needs to be completed when, you should be the project manager. As long as you can stay organized and keep everybody else organized and keep tasks on track, it is definitely you to be that project manager. So how do you do it? You get on this first meeting and you kind of all look at each other like, I don't know what's going on. And we're going to start working with this project. And it's very easy to get into a brainstorming session where people just talk and you have these esoteric conversations about, wouldn't it be great if, and what happens if this happens, and how do we plan for the negatives? And that becomes too up in the clouds, and it's not really a project planning meeting. So a project planning meeting starts with, hey guys, this is the intention. Our intention is to launch this partnership by October 15th. And when I say we launch the partnership, I mean that once these customers start calling in, I want to make sure that on the back end, we are completely ready to handle those support questions, as well as from a sales perspective, handle those incoming deals. So that is the objective. That is the timeline. Now, all of you are here because you all have different parts of this. So we're going to walk through step by step, just talk through what needs to happen by October 15th. So we're going to talk through, what does that end product look like? What are we expecting in that end result? And then each stakeholder is going to start chiming in with different things that they need to do in order to make that work. So as an exercise, I just started an Excel sheet. I started an Excel sheet for all of you so that you could see how we would do this. So here we go. So I started an Excel sheet to show what a project plan would look like if I wanted to make a project plan for Gab with Garima. So here it is. I hope you guys can all see my screen. Can you guys see my screen? Let me try it again. Can you guys see it? All right. I think you guys can see it now. Anybody? Okay. All right. So when you are trying to create a project plan, you start with the status of, first you start with the task. So in this case, I was like, well, in order to have a weekly session, I first need to get approved for LinkedIn Live by LinkedIn. So I need to submit an application, get approved. And if I was creating a full project plan, I'd actually even write, create application for LinkedIn Live. So actually, let's do that here. So create application for LinkedIn Live. I can't even type when all you guys are watching. And then the group would be me, so it's in management. I'm going to own that. And in this case, my target completion date for that was actually 7/1. And at this point, I've completed it. But before that, I hadn't. So it wouldn't have been completed. I would have put that at 0%. And if it hasn't started yet, so in this case, it's completed. Otherwise, I could write not started. Then I need to get approved for LinkedIn Live. Then once we're approved, we say, okay, well, we need to create a time slot. When are we going to do this? Are we going to do this weekly, monthly? When are we going to do that? What's the cadence? So marketing, we have an amazing VP of marketing, Scott, who helps us with all of this. And he created this cadence and time slot for when we're going to do it. And he decided that a couple of weeks ago. Then he created a logo for what it's actually going to look like to have Gab with Garima. And maybe that doesn't, it seems like a small task, but it's important and needs to get done if we want to use some kind of streaming platform. Then we knew that we needed an actual streaming service. So in order to stream on LinkedIn Live, you need to be using a streaming service. So we got a streaming service, and that had to be done by finance. And my partner, Tom, is our CEO, and he also runs the finance of the company. So he had to make sure that we were enrolled in a streaming service and can use that. Then we needed equipment. So I have this really cool, I don't know if you guys can see, but I have a light. And if you guys have seen me on live before, you can't see me because it's pretty dark. I have a window behind me and a lot of natural light. So often it doesn't work very well. So buy appropriate equipment. We need to make sure that we have a ring light and things like that. What else do we need to do? We needed to make sure, so create social posts so that people know, right? So we have to tell all of you. So that again went to marketing. And in this case, it's completed. Then we needed to test it. Test to see if it works. We need to see how the streaming system would work. We need to make sure we were all on the same page. So that was completed, and that was completed by both myself and Scott, but I'm going to give that to me because I had to test it to make sure I knew how to do this, because I'm not exactly the most, I'll often say that inanimate objects have a conspiracy against me. So I wanted to make sure that my camera worked, the light worked, everything else. And we wanted to make sure that was done by, let's just say, this week. We have to choose a topic, and this one was tough because I haven't gotten a lot of info from you guys, but I would love to get some ideas for topics from y'all, but we had to choose a topic, right? So choose a topic for this first broadcast. So we completed it, and I completed that actually yesterday. So, well, probably 2 days ago, so we could talk about it. So we completed that, and now we're going to have more, right? So now that we are starting to do it, we're going to need to continue this project plan. We're going to see, okay, well, we're going to need to, so not started would be, we need to have more social posts for our weekly broadcasts. We need to create a calendar of all topics, right? So these all we can kind of put in. And this is super simple, right? Like, and I use Excel. Like I love that, Terry, you're talking about Excel and how much you love it. I love Excel, and it's super, super simple, but I like to use Excel. There's a ton of project management softwares out there. So you can use Basecamp, you can use Projects, you can use Asana, there's tons of project management softwares out there, but I would highly recommend starting in Excel before you go and buy a project management software. So go ahead and start understanding how to do this and just what you're thinking about needing, right? So, I need to do this. So I need to start creating a topic. So I haven't started this either. And we probably need to do this by tomorrow, I would assume, so that we can get these out. So these are at 0% completion. And this is how we work. This is how we do a project plan. So when you get on a project planning meeting, you just go through that. So all the tasks that are completed, you turn green. Super, super simple, right? Everybody can see that? Turn to green. Can you guys all see that? Right? So those are done. So I'm going to focus on the things that are not done. And in our teams, we have a rule that if you go into the project plan before, in the middle, like between, so like let's say we have project planning meeting every Thursday. If you go on that project plan on a Wednesday and you make a change, so let's say Scott went in and he changed this and he said, oh, it's work in progress now. And he said it's 50% done. And he might say, need more input from Garima. Let's say he says that. So he's going to take that and he's going to turn it yellow so that the entire team knows that that's something that he's made a change on before we've had our next meeting. So that's how we handle our project planning meetings. Now we are using also systems like Basecamp and stuff like that so that we can get, if you guys hear the growling, I'm sorry. Oh my gosh, my dog's crazy. I'm so sorry. I guess this is what happens when you're live. You can't, make sure your dog doesn't bark, but oh well, such is life, especially working from home. I'm sure you guys all understand it. So anyways, you want to make sure that you have your things in yellow or things in white for what you're working on, what you're not. And you get on the project planning meeting and you walk through this. So, hey, Scott, I see that you turned this yellow. Can you tell me a little bit about what that is and what the questions are that you have? Or, hey, this wasn't worked on, but it was due last week. Did you get anywhere on this? So if someone else was a project manager, they'd say, hey, Garima, you're supposed to create a calendar of topics by the 18th. Did you do that? Yes or no? And where are you? This percent complete, people like to get really funny with it. I like to use 25, 50, 75, 100%. We don't use 10%. You can do it in any increments you want, but I highly recommend figuring that out before you even start a project plan so that everybody's on the same page. But like I said, you don't have to use Excel. There's a lot of different ways to do this, but it's super important to start working with some kind of project plan. And I will tell you, I use project planning for my life. So I love throwing parties. I love doing all kinds of things. And even for that, I create a project plan. Did I contact the caterer? Do I know, have I sent out invites? And I know this is very different in the time of COVID because we're not actually having big parties, but when I do, I have a full project plan that has all of that information in there, and it keeps that task list, not just for me, but for anybody else who may be helping, especially if we're talking about things like fundraisers and everything else. We may need marketing, we may need signage, we may need other stuff. So very, very important to work on a project plan. So that's really what I had today. I'm going to stop sharing this screen and go back to the regular one. Did you guys have any questions on how this works, how to do a project plan, why you may need a project plan? I know it's really, really simple, and I'm sure that a lot of you do it already. And I know everybody likes to have tasks and to-dos that they check off. So I know that this seems pretty straightforward, but I know it's one of those things that I know I had forgotten. Even though I've done it before, I definitely was like, man, I wonder why we're not connecting the way we're supposed to and getting through all the tactical stuff that needs to happen. And a lot of that was simply because we weren't having project planning meetings and working on project planning. And so now that we're doing it, we're a lot more aligned and everybody's a lot more on track. And yes, it seems silly to have additional meetings, but as I said, after that first 1 or 2 meetings and you have all of the tasks on the list, your project planning meetings will take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. They're not super long. They're very, very simple. And you get a lot done and you start realizing how much time you have to do things. It also helps you and your team plan for their lives because they may say, oh, wow, I've got 4 things due this week, but next week I only have 1 thing. So I'm going to get these 4 done. And next week I can get done all of those other tasks that I may have for something else because my week is a lot easier. Or maybe they have 2 or 3 really easy weeks where only 1 or 2 things are due. No problem. Maybe they want to knock it all out at one time. So Nina, you said how much time you recommend companies manage on managing the project versus. So I think executing the project is the most important thing. Managing the project should be a very, very, very tiny portion of someone's time. It should be 10% of the time spent to managing that project or making sure the tasks are happening. That really should fall on that project manager. Whoever you deem as the project manager in the organization, that's the person who should be really running that and running the tasks and reminding people and making sure things get done. The whole point of the project plan is to create executable items so that people can continue doing those tasks and actually get them done. If you spend all the time kind of managing that project plan and nothing's executable, and that's kind of what I was talking about at the beginning, where you may have these first project planning meetings and everybody's super like in the clouds and wouldn't it be great if, and then you don't end up with any real to-dos. And if you don't have any real tactical to-dos in your project plan, you're not handling project planning right. So it should be all about execution and very little time spent on the management. And for us now, when we do project planning meetings, because everybody's so used to it, our average project planning meeting is between 5 and 7 minutes. We get on, we look at the tasks that are open that are due that week, and we look through any people's notes or any updates, and then we're done. And if anybody has anything to add, they know that they need to come to the meeting with those things to it. Does anybody have any other questions? Thank you, Anurag, for saying it's informative. I appreciate that. And thank you, Tira, for saying it's back to basics. Back to basics. I know I like to keep things pretty simple. It's easier that way. Anybody else? Anybody else have any questions? If not, we really, really, really appreciate you guys joining. Thank you for joining Gab with Garima. We'll be doing this every week. We really want you to give us feedback. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to hear about? What are things you guys are struggling with? I can tell you all the things I struggle with because it's a lot. And we hope that we can all build together. So thank you guys so much.